You know the feeling when you finally decide you're ready to turn that pile of networking gear, a couple of NAS drives, maybe a small media server, into something that actually looks organized instead of a tangled mess on a desk. You want a rack that's sturdy enough to hold the weight, quiet enough not to become a background roar, and simple enough that you don't spend a weekend hunting for missing screws. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The biggest hesitation most people have is wondering whether the cabinet they're eyeballing is just a fancy shelf that will wobble under a couple of heavy drives, or if it's a full-blown lab-ready enclosure that will actually protect and cool the gear for years. When I started looking at home lab racks, the first thing I did was map out my own setup. I have a 2-bay NAS, a 24-port gigabit switch, a small rack-mountable UPS, and a couple of Raspberry Pi boxes that run my home automation. All of those items together tip the scales at around 150 pounds, and they need proper airflow because the NAS runs hot under sustained transfers. That's where a 37U rack like this one starts to make sense. The depth of 39 inches is generous enough to slide a full-size NAS in without it sticking out, and the built-in fans give you active airflow right where you need it. For anyone who's already bought a few rack-mountable pieces and is now looking for a place to put them, the capacity and depth are real wins. The cabinet's construction is all reinforced steel, which you'll feel as soon as you open the front. The frame doesn't flex when you load the top shelves, and the side panels stay square even after moving the rack across the room. That heavy-duty feel translates into confidence when you're stacking 1U or 2U servers. If you're the type who likes to add a new piece every few months, maybe a 4U rack-mountable GPU server for a machine learning experiment, the steel chassis can take the extra load without sagging. The downside is the weight of the empty rack itself. You'll need at least 2 people to get it upright, and it sits firmly on the floor, which is fine for a permanent home lab but not ideal if you're renting and need to move it frequently. One of the most eye-catching features is the tempered glass door. It gives you a clear view of the LEDs on your switches and servers, which is great when you're troubleshooting and don't want to open the whole thing. The lockable glass also adds a level of security. Kids or pets can't just open the front and pull out a drive. In practice, though, the glass can become a fingerprint magnet, and cleaning it regularly is a small chore. If you're planning to keep the rack in a dusty garage or a workshop, you might find the glass door a bit of a maintenance hassle compared with a solid metal door that you can wipe clean with a dry cloth. The built-in 8-outlet PDU is another practical touch. It means you can plug your switch, NAS, and any other rack-mountable devices without hunting for power strips and dangling cords. The outlets are spaced to accommodate both C13 and C19 plugs, which covers most consumer and small business gear. I tested it by running the NAS, the switch, and a small rack-mountable router all at once. The PDU handled the load without tripping, and the power cables stayed neat behind the side panels. A potential weak point is that the PDU doesn't have individual circuit breakers, so if one device shorts, the whole rack could lose power. For most hobbyist setups that's acceptable, but a professional environment would probably want a more granular power management solution. Cooling is a major concern for any home lab, and the rack comes with 2 pre-installed fans that draw air through the front glass door and out the rear vents. In a real-world test, I left the NAS copying a large video library for an hour. The temperature stayed within the manufacturer's safe range, and the fans adjusted their speed quietly enough that they never became a distraction while I was watching a movie in the same room. The trade-off here is that the fans are always on, which adds a slight constant noise level about the sound of a quiet home HVAC unit. If you're setting the rack in a bedroom or a home office where silence is golden, you might consider swapping the fans for quieter models, but for most living room or office placements the noise is negligible. Who should buy this rack? If you already own a handful of rack-mountable devices and you're serious about keeping them organized, protected, and cooled, this cabinet gives you a ready-to-go solution without needing to buy separate shelves, PDUs, or fans. It's also a solid choice for students or hobbyists who are building a home lab to learn networking, virtualization, or storage concepts. The combination of depth, load capacity, and built-in power makes it a practical platform for incremental upgrades. On the other hand, if you're just starting out with a single NAS,